Hello my friends, welcome to my channel where I make learning Affinity Studio interesting. Alright, so in our past videos, I talked about how you can navigate the interface, how you can get used to the Vector Studio, and also how you can work with a couple of the tools inside of the Vector Studio. Today, I'll be talking about the Pixel Studio, right? This is the Pixel Studio, and I'll be explaining in details the tools that you have inside of this Pixel Studio, right? Now, see this Pixel Studio as your Photoshop of the Affinity Studio itself, right? So that's Pixel. So most of the tools that you would see here is similar to what you have inside of Adobe Photoshop, right? I'll be explaining that one after the other. Right, so if you're inside of Vector, please move to Pixel because we are talking about pixels today, right? So the first thing I'm going to start with is actually the Move tool, right? It's basically everywhere. So to illustrate this, you know what the Move tool is about. It's used to navigate the interface like this. It's used to select other tools. And of course, when you draw a rectangle like this, I'm just going to draw a rectangle like this. I'm just going to fill it with color like this, right? So now the colors here, it's more like the background and foreground color. So you have to be mindful of which is which, so you're not using the wrong color, right? So I'm filling it with, currently the red is the background color. You have to take note of that. Right, so the Move tool is something that you can use to scale. I'm going to scale this, scale up. And of course, you can also use this to rotate a shape like this. Hold down Shift to maintain a rotation of this sort, right? So, of course, this is the Move tool. Of course, you can actually use it to make several copies by holding down your Control or holding down your Alt key. While you drag a shape like this, makes another copy of that shape, right? So that's the Move tool. The next thing here you're going to find here is the Perspective tool. Of course, when you click on the shape you want to apply this to, you can apply this to pictures, you can apply this to shape, but I feel it makes more sense when you apply them to shape. And of course, in subsequent video where I'll be doing the flyer designs and compositions and everything, you'll see this in play. So basically, selecting your perspective tool like this, you can create a nice perspective like this. And of course, you can move this out like this, move this out, and let's stretch this out like this. And great, right? So I can make this stylish by throwing in some artistic text. And I'm just going to use this to type design like this. And I'm going to change the font here to the one that I used. I'm going to use the one I've been using. This time I'm still going to stay with Angelic Child. So switch to the Move tool, make this bigger first while I change the font, right? So it not only works on shapes and pictures, it works on your text too. So I'm just going to make this white, and I'm just going to switch over to my perspective like this. And of course, instantly it's going to move and align with what I want to do. So you can have this here and have some easy effects that I want to throw in here, and I can use my Move tool to move this and to actually align this together. And you can actually move this, and of course you can rotate it just the way you want, right? So I'm just going to leave this here while I talk about the next tool. Okay, so talking about the next tool, I'm going to use this image to illustrate what the mesh warp tool is about, right? So if you are looking at this tool, you can think of the warp tool inside of Photoshop, right? It's just that this works differently. So you can select any part from this place here, and you can actually warp this tool like this. You can change this. Let's say you want to move this, and click on this part here and bring this down like this, and click on this one, right? So this comes handy when you're trying to make your compositions. I can move this And of course, I'm just changing the dynamics of this shape. So when I'm done with everything I'm doing, I click enter, and of course it becomes the way I have adjusted it to be, right? So this is how you use your mesh warp tool. So the next tool I'm talking about here is the crop tool, right? So like the crop tool, when you click on the crop tool, it has on the properties bar here, you have so many options. You can click on this to determine the kind of crop that you want to apply to the particular image, right? If you select here, you can choose to do things manually by selecting any of this original ratio. You can use the default ratio to create something like this, or you can choose to use the custom ratio. Maybe you have your own ratio size and everything. You can just impute them here. Let's say I want a 500 by let's say 500 like this. So I can easily impute that size there, and I can just have this. So this is the 500 by 500, or you can always resample, but most times I like using this. These are ready-made sizes for me. These are custom ratios, and of course these are photographics, and you can see that you have the size here. So just make things easy for yourself and just come here and select what you want to select. And I think okay, so let me go with custom. I'm just going to click on unconstrained, and I'm just going to crop only the areas that I want to crop, right? So I can move this out, move this backwards, and I'm just going to crop. Maybe I want to make this into a passport. So I'm just going to zoom in on this like this, and move this up like this. And I'm just going to crop this part alone. And when I get my desired size, I'm just going to click enter or click apply, and boom, you have a cropped image like this. Okay, so the next tool I want to talk about is the object selection tool. Now, to use this object selection tool, disclaimer, the first thing, I understand that it's a new release for Affinity Studio, right? And some of the tools are quite shaky and all of that. And you might experience lag when you're trying to use some of this effect. It's normal. Now, the first thing I want you to understand is most times your settings can be the one hindering you from using these effects, right? But for instance, if you are trying to use this, normally you're going to get this clockwork. I don't know if it's like that for you, but it has always been like this for me. I feel that this is the AI inside of the interface trying to analyze the image and trying to understand the image so that it can actually make a good selection, right? But away from that, there's something else you can do. You can actually click on edit and click on settings and come under here where it says performance. So you can give more RAM usage to Affinity Studio, and of course you can also change your renderer, right? You can change it from anyone you're having here to the one that has dedicated graphics, right? If that works. If you are in a dedicated graphics, you can move from that point to also the warp part like this. Selecting warp and also click on OK. And of course, when you select the warp, make sure you disable this, right? So you can always toggle and change and see what works for you and what stops the lagging, right? So you can click on close like this and everything gets sorted out for you. Okay, so you can see that it has loaded up, and of course when you see lines like this, you can see that it has measured up the image and you can now make selection, right? So if you want to make selections to the background, you can make selection to the background by selecting this, but my priority here is the image. So I'm going to click on the image. When this comes up, I'm just going to click on it, and of course it's going to analyze the image finally. And of course when it does this, you are going to see a marquee selection all around the image like this. You can see it's selected, right? But now it doesn't stop here. You can see the selection is there, but it doesn't stop here. With the selection, you can click on refine, right? So when you click on refine, just like I said, this has similarities to what you have inside of Photoshop. Now you can see that this part here, you have some white part from the beards. What you can just do is, with your brush tool selected, you can just paint here and wait for it to do its job. And of course, you can see it has gotten rid of those things here. So if you have an imperfection, maybe on the outside or where you feel that it's not supposed to be the way it is, you can just use your brush. For instance, it's supposed to select this part here. So reducing the size of your brush, press the bracket key beside the letter P, and I can just paint here too. And of course, it's going to refine this and remove the background from that part. So this is very straightforward and easy to do. But the thing here is you have to be patient with this, right? So you can make changes to this guys here. You can make the edges smoother if it is not smooth enough. Well, what I have here, I think mine is smooth enough, so I'm not going to touch that settings. And of course, you can adjust any of this based on what you have. But I'm going to leave everything I have because it is what I like going on for myself here. So I'm just going to click on apply, and easy peasy, it has applied my refinements. But then I still have my background. Just click on the mask to remove the background. And when you Ctrl D to select, this is what you have. You can see your selection nicely done. All right. Selection is nicely done. Good. So let me just Ctrl Z this and Ctrl D this and right. So over here is where you have your Canva AI, right? And now your Canva AI has the feature that you can use to remove background. So this only works when you have a pro account, when you have a Canva Pro account. This only works when you have. So if you are not a Canva Pro user, this will not work. So when you click on like this, it's going to remove the background for you automatically. So most times for my compositions, this is what I do, right? You can see that it's also perfect. So you can do it manually, or you can use the AI inside of Affinity Studio, which is the Canva AI, right? So I'm just going to Ctrl Z this and let's move on to the next thing, right? So the next thing here is your selection brush. So with your selection brush, you can actually make selection of the image by just dragging across and making this marquee selection. You can see it's selecting, but the downside to this is that most times it's not perfect. And another thing is it takes time, right? Most times when you are designing, you have a project that you're working on, you might not have the luxury of time like this, right? It does the job well for you. You can see I have made my selection, right? I can make this smaller, and of course I can click on subtract and apply this here. You can see that it's not perfect. I have to zoom close and all of that. This takes time. You can also refine this to fix this, but it's not my go-to tool to actually use for selection. And this one here also, this is the flood selection, right? So clicking on it, you can actually make a selection of your background and the image. It's just that it is not always perfect. You can see that I'm supposed to make a selection of just the background, but it is entering inside the picture itself. So this again, it's not perfect. So my first method, and of course using the AI to remove the background, actually works best for me. Okay, so the next tool I'll be talking about here is the rectangular marquee tool. So I'm just going to talk about the rectangular marquee tool because all of this works the same way, even the rectangular marquee tool works. So maybe you want to highlight a particular area of the image. Maybe I want to do something like this. I might choose to want to create an effect and maybe an adjustment, not necessarily effects. So I'll just go under here and click on let's see. I'm going to use glitch. And I'm going to use slice color, right? So I'm just going to increase this, and you can see the effects that I'm trying to. Now, the marquee selection is the reason why this is not being applied to all of the entire image, right? So you can use to select and add effects just the way I'm doing here, or you can choose to, let me deselect this, Ctrl Z, and go all the way back to the selection. You can press Ctrl D. you can actually do something like this, maybe make selection of this parts here, and Ctrl J to make a copy of this. And of course, when you Ctrl D to deselect, let me hide this layer, you can see that I have, this is what I selected using my marquee tool. So I'm going to zoom this out, and so I can see this in real time. You can see based on this selection, I can have several copies of this, and I can make something out of this. Yeah, good. So I'm just going to delete all of this and turn this back on and move on with the rest of it. Now, the next one I'll be talking about here is actually the freehand selection. Now, the freehand selection does exactly what it does, just like the name implies, freehand, right? So there are a couple of things you want to change here. This is the freehand, so you can just drag and draw to make selection. This is not perfect, but please make sure yours is perfect. So draw like this to make selection. I think I like this, right? So I can go over to while I make my selection like this, I can go ahead to my refinement quarter and to refine this and to do all of that. You can also work with your feather also. Deselect, and when you select this one, this is the polygonal freehand selection tool. I see no difference with the way the first one was or this one, but then I think I understand this. This has straight line. It can be a straight line and it can be like this. So you can use anyone, or you can use your magnetic. So magnetic, you can, this takes you closer to your image when you're trying to select, I guess, because this is close. And you can end your selection here. Right, you have to double click most times and all of that, right? So that's how you can actually use this, right? So take, for instance, I have removed the background, and let me remove the background of this image. So I'm going to select this, and I'm just going to quickly click on the remove background to use the AI features of Affinity Studio to remove the background here. And it's going to do that for me very quickly. And this is what I have. So I want to illustrate what I can do with these tools here. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the fill tool. So it's the same thing as the tool you have here when you switch over to the Vector Studio, right? Same tool here. So I'm going to go back to the pixel, and this is what I'm trying to explain now. So for instance, I'm going to create a new layer. Click on this to create a new layer like this, but I'm going to move this layer just beneath this object, and I can hide this. Right, so with this, I'm just going to illustrate what this can do. So by default, I'm just going to drag like this. By default, the colors are black and white, but you can actually draw and of course change the color here based on your selection. So you can have this, and you can actually move this around, right? You can actually move this around. I'm going to make this, and of course, you can see I just changed the background for this image. And of course, I can choose not to use it this way, and maybe let me hide this. I'm going to create a new layer here, and I'm going to use the next one, which is the flood fill tool. So with the flood fill tool, I'm just going to click once like this, and just fill it with the words with the background color, right? So to change the background color, you can, let me change this first. Maybe I want to use a red or this color here. So I can select the color first, then use this to give this color. So I can use either this or I can use this, anyone that works for you, right? So great. Okay, so the next tool I'll be explaining is the pen brush tool. Now, so the pen brush tool is just like the brush you have inside of Photoshop. You can use to actually, and let me increase the size of the brush. You can change the size of the brush here, or you can do that manually by Ctrl Z, by clicking on the brackets key after the letter P on your keyboard. So the two bracket keys, reduce and increase. So over here is where you have the settings, right? But this is the settings that I like to use most of the times, right? So you can change the hardness of the brush. most times I like to work on the soft brush, which is the 0%. So it's quite different from what you have in Photoshop, that you have to like pick the kind of brush, the softness of the brush, right? But this one, you can just bump this up, and of course, it becomes a hard brush. So when you paint, when you click, make this smaller. When you click, and this is what happened, you can see that it's hard. Now it's showing like this because all these things are happening in real time, right? But I just clicked just once, and it's not that dark because I turned, let me click on the brush. My flow is set to 36. But when I increase this and I select the layer, let me click a new layer here and click here, you can see that I have a big black dotted brush. So if I draw like this, this is what I am creating, right? So create a new layer like this and delete this one, right? But most times what I like to do is, for my compositions, I like to reduce this to like a 30, and I like to reduce my flow to like 0%. And I'm just going to paint with this. If I want it to be more intense, I'm just going to focus on one part and make it more intense. Create a new layer, and I'm going to delete this. Now let's look at a more practical example, right, to get this done. Now take, for instance, I can take my fill tool and I can draw across like this to create a nice gradient, right? But with this, I'm going to be using elliptical like this, right? So I'm just going to draw again, but this time from the middle like this, and I'm going to extend this way, and I'm just going to have this way. But then let me define my primary and secondary color. Click on this, and I'm going to select the red, and click on this, and I'm going to select the orange color. So I'm just going to drag this out to make a nice blur. And you can also change the direction too. Change direction like this, and you have a nice reflection like this. And you can choose to double click on the line like this to add another color. So I can make this lighter by moving close to the lighter region here, and feel free to extend this just the way you want. So I'm just going to go into my Smart Designer Premium Assets, and I'm just going to bring something inside. So I have the picture of this burger. I think this works. No, let me use this. So I think this works. I'm just going to drag this and place inside like this. So, and I'm going to reduce it like this, just like this. So you can use this to actually create some amazing web banners or flyers. And for this, I'm going to have this here, and I'm going to make a duplicate copy of this. So I'm just going to duplicate this. Now, right clicking on this, you can actually transform this and say flip vertical, right? So flipping vertical, you can then use your warp mesh tool to warp this up well so that it can sit well, right? So I can move this and bring this inside here like this to have a nice warp effect, right? So I'm just going to move this closer by clicking on this, and I think I'm okay with this, and I'm going to click enter like this. Can see it's done nicely. So I'm just going to drag this behind the first hamburger. This should be beneath this. And of course, you can click on the mask, right? Click on the mask and select your brush, select the brush, the pen brush tool. And of course, you can actually, when your foreground color should be set to black conceals. So I'm just going to do this and conceal this part here to make a nice reflection effect. Now this is same thing you can achieve when you're using Photoshop. The same thing you can do here also. So there's no restriction to your creativity, right? I can move this and make this bigger like this, and I can have my nice font. I'm just going to use my text tool here, and I'm just going to type yummy burger. And duplicate this burger like this. And select the two of them and go over to the character. If you can't find character, you can open this up and under text, make sure this is checked marked, right? So what you want to do here is click on this and click on -50, and for the color, you want to click on color and make this white. Then, of course, I'm going to change the fonts. I'm going to use what I've been using since, this font. And Yummy Burger. I think this space is too close. So I'm going to use a 25, and I'm okay with this. So I can go ahead and use my artistic text for my subtext by using this frame. And of course, I'm just going to ask this to insert filler text, and Ctrl A to select this, and I'm just going to drop the size of the text here to like a 9. And of course, clicking on the color, I'm going to click on whites, and we're good to go. So I can have this text, and of course, I've created my nice web banner or my flyer just like this using the brush, right? So your brush tool can also be used on your text, I assume. So select the text and click on the mask, right? And I can easily select the pen brush, and I can conceal the areas that I want to conceal, just like this, or conceal this lower region here. Just make sure your settings are like what I am using, right? So you can copy the settings and use the next time you want to make sure your brush it's not, you're not doing too much with your brush, right? Great. Okay, so the next tool I'll be talking about is paint mixer brush, right? So the paint mixer brush, look. So I've customized my settings to use this brush here. So basically what it does is I can select a color, make sure you're working with a color first. So I'm going to use my eyedropper tool and select this color, right? So when I select this color, this is now my background color. So I can now go back to the brush and select my paint mixer brush, and I can then come on the image like this, and I can do stuff like this. See that basically I'm just mixing the colors on the skin here. So when I zoom closer, you can see that I'm putting that color in these areas like this. And of course, I'm mixing up the colors that I have on the skin like this. It might not be too obvious because my strength is at 16. So when I increase this from 16 to maybe like 47, if I mix them more, you can see what's happening, right? So you can look for creative ways to actually use the mixer brush. Most times, using the mixer brush for me inside of this application is just make the skin softer, so you can customize all of this to actually make the skin softer and work with the settings that you are comfortable with. So let's move on to the next tool. The next tool I'll be showing you here is the erase brush tool. So your erase brush tool is used to erase like this, and basically just erasing what you want to erase. But this is a destructive way to erase if you are thinking about erasing with this. So the best way to always erase is, please get your mask and of course use your brush here, your pen brush, to erase whatever you want to erase. And of course, if you feel you've made a mistake and you want to go back, you can always delete the mask, and everybody goes home happy, actually, right? So that's for the eraser. The background eraser tool works the same way. So you can erase the background like this by clicking on the image and going around the image like this. But then most times it's not always perfect because you have stuff like this at the edge, right? So I'm just going to Ctrl Z this, and the next one is the flood erase. So you can click on the parts and you can see that it has removed the particular color from that area, right? So if I click on this part here, it's going to remove the particular color that surrounds that area, right? So if I click on the black here, it might get rid of the entire hair. I said it. And of course, anything that has to be black. So if I select this, that means I'm telling Affinity Pixel Studio to remove everything that has to be black. So that's how these actually work, right? Now, the adjustment brush, right? Okay, so you can make adjustments with this. So the trick here is when you select the adjustment brush, don't just go ahead to actually make. You can click which adjustment you want to make. So if it's your levels, your exposure, for this, most times I'm just going to use curve. So I'm just going to make this smaller, and of course my the flow of my brush is just, let me reduce this to like a 40 or a 50, right? So if I select this, I'm going to go, since I'm selecting curve, so I'm going to go to the areas where I want that curve to be active. So I'm going to zoom in and reduce the size of my brush like this, and I'm reducing, it's changing the name here. It's not supposed to be like that. But then click on the image, and I'm going to use my bracket key to increase this. Let's say I want the curves to be here. So I'm just going to add curves to this. You can see the settings. When you press and hold, you can see the settings. So you can change this. And when you're okay with that, you can add to all of these points too. So I'm adding to this point here. I want this clearly defined, and I can add to this point here. So when you click and drag, it's going to bring this up. So you can now adjust this based on what you're doing. And of course, over here, I'd want this here. And you just need to be creative with this. I want this here. So you can have your curves adjustment layer, and it's going to come as an adjustment layer here. So you can choose to drag this inside of this image to make it part of it, like a clipping mask. And of course, if all of these things you don't like it, you can always come back and delete it. And let's try and keep things non-destructive. So you can explore all of the options here, posterize, vibrance, and color balance. Of course, you can change your color here, and of course, when you click once, it's going to bring this up, and you can now reset what you want with that. And that's exactly how it works. So basically, this is the most important thing here. Of course, the burn tool, just the way the burn tool works in Photoshop, the dodge and the sponge, also the same thing, how it works. So I'm going to go to the next filter, which is the filter brush tool. So this is the filter brush tool. So over here too, when you move up, it's going to have several filters. But the good thing about it is both of them are brushes, but your brushes are going to be using your filters and your adjustments. So this is quite different from how we used to use things. I'm talking based on my experience using Photoshop over the years, right? So over here in clarity, I can come and maybe I want clarity. Let's see clarity. So I can go to the areas where I want clarity and make my brush smaller and apply that clarity to those areas, right? So my brush is the hard brush, so I'm going to use the soft brush, and I'm just going to add clarity to these regions here. The eyes, the nose, you can see the difference. I'm adding clarity to this. Or you can say, okay, I want to apply this effect to the whole face like this, so I can apply clarity like this. And but this is quite different. It's not going to bring up the clarity adjustments, but you can as well edit the filter here. Look at the strength, so you can choose to reduce this when you don't want this, or you can choose to keep it the way it is. So after you finish painting, you can adjust like this, and of course, yeah, it stays non-destructive, right? So you can add an extra filter. Like if you use the clarity and you want another filter, so click on this add filter, and of course it has added the filter to your layer as another layer on its own. So if you don't want to see this, you can turn this off. And of course, that's what you have there going on. All right, guys, the next tool I'll be talking about is the clone stamp. The clone brush in Photoshop is called the clone stamp, right? So the clone brush here is, like I said, it works the same way it works in Photoshop. So for instance, if I want to clone this part, so I'm just going to click on the Alt key and click here you can see there's a pointer there. Okay, so to use this, hold down your Alt key and select the region you want to clone, which is here. So I can come to this part here where I want to transfer the clone, maybe somewhere here on the side here. And I'm just going to paint this back here. So exactly how it works inside of, and I'm using this the way it is, not sharp, because of the settings of my brush. So just make sure you're selecting your layers, and of course you have your source. If I want this as my source, I'm going to come here, select this part, and I'm just going to clone this part here. If I want this as my source, I'm just going to select this and come here and clone this as my source. So I can keep painting and painting and painting until I get my source right. The next brush I'll be talking about here is the inpainting brush, right? Select this and it just does this for you. And wow, sorry about that. Very sorry about that. So the healing brush and the patch tool and the blemish removal works the same way the tools work inside of Photoshop, right? So let's move on to the next one, which is the pen tool. So the pen tool is pretty straightforward. Use it to draw shapes, and you can change the color by simply coming here and using your wheel to change the color. Of course, you can get rid of the outline by clicking here, none. And of course, you can use it to draw other shapes, right? So you also have your rectangle tools here, and most of the tools that would already covered inside of the Vector Studio. So you can check out that video to actually know what all of this and how you can use all of that. Also, this one here, the artistic text and the frame text too was covered in the previous video. So you can check out that video, and of course you can see what all of this is useful. So this one here, the color picker tool and the style picker tool, was also covered in the last video. Virtually every other thing here, the hand tool, you can use this to move around inside of the pixel interface like this. And of course, like I told you before, if your zoom is not working, you can go over to edit, settings, and you can click on interface. Is it interface or tools? Yes, tools, and make sure this is selected. Right, it's good. And you can zoom in and zoom out. You don't need to use the zoom tool. Right, so there's another thing I want to make mention of. If I zoom close, if I go over to the vector, there is this tool that is close to the fill tool, which is a transparency tool, which I like to have here. But as you can see, it's not part of the tools here, but you don't have to fret, right? What you have to do is click on this three dots, click on it, and of course you can search. So you can search for transparency, and this is it. You can easily just click and of course drag here to be part of these tools, and of course it's now available for you to use. So I love using this tool. So in places where I don't have to use my brush, like for instance, if I am working on layers like this, let's say I have two images here, I'm just going to make them smaller like this. I can easily select the two of them and select your transparency, and of course fade them out like this. So this works faster than using the brush. Now start using the brush, you group them, use the brush and all of that. You can actually do this the other way. I wouldn't call it the hard way. Group this and of course create a mask and select your brush, the pen brush, and conceal this part here. Just make sure you're using like my settings, and make this also bigger and like this. So, or you can, but the good thing about using the brush is you can control the areas you want this to get to. So by moving this up, you can see you are controlling this. I'm controlling the mask. So you can move this up like this. And of course, this is what you have. You can be minimal with these effects and you have it this way. Right? So yeah. So one last thing I want to talk about again is, let me come back to this image, is the CorelDraw replica that you have inside here. So when you select the image using your move tool, if you look up here, you have develop, you have liquify. Now your liquify works the same way your liquify works inside of Photoshop. You can see, I wouldn't want this like this, and you have your settings that you can use to actually make this happen for you here. And if you can cancel your tone map, if you click on tone map, you have the studio is going to give you different variations of the picture. I don't know if this is actually, you can see this is neutral, this is detailed. You can always reduce this here from the radius here. And so you don't have, you can have this, you can have a black and white and all of this. You can actually use this to refine what you want to do, right? So I'm going to cancel this. Yes. So the last one here is more like the camera itself. When you click on develop, it's going to bring out all of this. So under the basics, you have exposure, just the same way you have in Photoshop, right? Exposure, and you have your black points. You want to add more blacks to this. You have your brightness. Of course, you know what that means. You can increase the brightness like this. And under enhance, you have clarity. I love using clarity when I want to make the image pop. Or you can use the brush that I explained to you a few moments ago. You have all of these details. If you want to add noise, if you want to refine the details, of course, for the radius, and you can bump this up to have a very, very sharp image. You can take advantage of what you have here under the tones and maps and see what's you can actually create from all of this. At the side here, you also have your white balance. So you can click here and add some white balance to this image naturally. And of course, you have a couple of things here, your blemish removal, your mask paints, and also your mask erase and your mask gradients, right? So you can add your gradients to this like this, and you have this nice effect inside here. And when you're done, click on develop, and this is what you have, right? And it's taking time to process, and good. So this is what you have. So you can see that it's much better than what I had before. The image per se is better than what I had before, right? So guys, if you have questions on this video, in our next video, I'll be covering the Canva AI and the layout also, right? So that you can understand and maximize your usage of this application. Till I come your way in the next video. I love you guys.